So, you're about to read the Bhagavad Gita for the first time, and what you need to know is that you're basically walking into the middle of an incredibly intense conversation. It's this amazing philosophical dialogue, sure, but it's happening on a battlefield, literally moments before a massive, catastrophic civil war is about to kick off. To really get the profound crisis at the heart of the Gita, you first have to understand the epic, messy, and truly tragic family story that led to this very moment.
And this is the absolute core puzzle of the Gita's opening. We meet Arjuna. He's the best archer on the planet, a guy who has trained his entire life for this one battle. And yet, right as the war horns are blowing, he just throws down his bow. He completely breaks down. What on earth could make a hero like that abandon his duty at the most critical moment possible? Well, that's exactly what we're here to unpack.
All right, so to solve this mystery, we've got to hit rewind. We need to go back and really understand the family feud that got so bitter, so toxic, that it would eventually pit brother against brother, cousin against cousin, on the battlefield of Kurukshetra. Our story really begins in the kingdom of Hastinapura with the royal Kuru dynasty. And, like so many tragedies, this whole thing starts with a single, seemingly noble act. It's a vow made by a prince named Bhishma to give up the throne. A vow that, without him ever meaning to, created a giant power vacuum that would end up consuming generations to come. So how does one promise lead to a total disaster? Well, after Bhishma took himself out of the running, the line of succession got messy. It got so bad the family had to bring in a holy sage, Vyasa, just to father the next generation of princes. And the result of that? You get two distinct family lines, born from two brothers. One is Dhritarashtra, who was born blind, and the other is his younger brother, Pandu. And right there, you have two competing claims for the exact same throne. And this is where we get our two opposing teams. On one side, you've got the Pandavas. These are the 5 sons of that younger brother, King Pandu. They're led by the really noble Yudhishthira, who is technically the rightful heir, and everybody loves them. The people are on their side. Then, on the other side, you have the Kauravas. These are the 100 sons of the blind king Dhritarashtra. They're led by the super proud and incredibly jealous Duryodhana, who is convinced the throne should be his. And the craziest part? They're all cousins, all part of the same Kuru family. Now, these 5 Pandava brothers and the 100 Kaurava brothers, they were all raised together. Same palace, same teachers. But what started out as just, typical childhood rivalry, it got totally twisted by Duryodhana's ambition. It started to fester into something much, much darker. You see, Duryodhana just couldn't stand it. He couldn't stand that his Pandava cousins were more skilled, seen as more honorable, and had a better claim to the kingdom. His jealousy just morphed into this burning, all-consuming hatred. And he decided, hey, if I can't beat them fairly, I'll just get rid of them permanently. And his first major attempt on their lives was a truly evil plan. He built his cousins this gorgeous palace, supposedly as a gift, but it was all a trap. The entire building was made of super flammable stuff, like wax and resin. The plan was to let them get comfortable, fall asleep, and then burn the whole thing down with them inside. But luckily, the Pandavas got a secret warning. They managed to escape through a hidden tunnel just as the palace went up in flames, and they fled into hiding while the rest of the world thought they were dead. So years go by. The Pandavas eventually return, and to keep the peace, the kingdom is actually split in half. But seeing them succeed just made Duryodhana's jealousy even worse. He couldn't stand seeing them thrive, so he came up with a new plan, one that would become the absolute point of no return for everyone, a rigged game of dice. Now, here's what's so tragic about this. The Pandavas' ultimate downfall doesn't come from some external enemy. It comes from within their own ranks. The eldest brother, the famously righteous Yudhishthira, had a weakness, a fatal flaw. He had a compulsion to gamble, and he was terrible at it. Duryodhana knew this was his weak spot and decided to exploit it in the worst way possible. And the result was a complete and utter catastrophe. Once the rigged game started, Yudhishthira's compulsion just took over. He lost everything. First his money and jewels, then his entire kingdom. Then, in this desperate, horrifying spiral, he bet his brothers and then himself and lost them all into slavery. And finally, in a move that's just unthinkable, he wagered their shared wife, Draupadi, and lost her too. This was the ultimate humiliation, an act so disgusting, so vile, it poisoned any chance of reconciliation forever. They dragged a queen into the middle of the royal court and tried to publicly disrobe her just to shame her and her husbands. This single act of profound dishonor is the emotional wound that never, ever heals. It's the moment the war stops being about politics and becomes deeply, deeply personal. Okay, so after that horror show, some of the family elders stepped in and stopped it. But Duryodhana wasn't about to let his victory go. He taunted Yudhishthira into one final game of dice. And the stakes, if you lose this one, you're all exiled. And of course, Yudhishthira played one last time and lost. The Pandavas were forced into 12 years of exile, living in the wilderness. And that was followed by a 13th year where they had to live in total disguise. And here's the kicker. If anyone discovered them during that final year, the whole 13-year exile would start all over again. After 13 long years of hardship, the Pandavas finally returned. They'd fulfilled their end of the bargain, and they peacefully asked for their half of the kingdom back. And this quote, it just perfectly captures Duryodhana's staggering arrogance. He flatly refused. He said he wouldn't give them enough land to even stick a pen into the ground. At that point, every single path to peace was shut. War was the only option left. And that whole long, tragic story brings us right back to where we started, the battlefield of Kurukshetra. Two gigantic armies are lined up, facing each other, filled with all the friends, family, and allies of both the Pandavas and the Kauravas. The moment of truth has finally arrived. Now let's zoom in on that chariot, right in the middle of the auction. Inside, we have our two key figures. First, there's Arjuna, the greatest warrior alive, a man of honor and duty, who is now just completely paralyzed by grief. And his charioteer is Krishna. Now, Krishna isn't just his best friend and his cousin. He is secretly a divine being, God in human form. It's a key detail that when both sides were gathering allies, they both went to Krishna. He offered a choice. You can have my massive armies, or you can have me alone as a non-fighting advisor. Duryodhana greedily snatched up the armies. Arjuna wisely chose Krishna. Okay, to really understand why Arjuna is falling apart, we have to talk about one super important concept, dharma. Now, dharma is this huge, complex idea, but you can think of it as one's sacred duty, righteousness, the right way to live your life. For a warrior prince like Arjuna, his specific dharma is crystal clear. His job is to fight for justice. But what happens when your sacred duty to fight for justice directly conflicts with another sacred duty, like, say, not killing your own family? That's the heart of his crisis. Because when Arjuna asks Krishna to drive their chariot out into the middle of the field between the two armies, he doesn't just see the enemy. He sees his great-grandfather Bhishma, the man who basically raised him. He sees his teacher, Drona, the guy who taught him everything he knows about archery. He sees all 100 of his cousins. He sees uncles and old friends. To win this righteous war, he has to personally kill the very people that he loves and respects the most. And so this is Arjuna's crisis, and it's the central question of the entire Bhagavad Gita. His dharma as a warrior screams fight, but his dharma as a human being and a family member screams, don't kill your kin. He is completely and totally trapped. Every single choice in front of him leads to unbelievable pain and suffering. So what is the right thing to do? It's an answer to that impossible question that Krishna finally begins to speak, and the whole philosophy of the Gita unfolds from there.